Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what will probably be the least controversial talk of the day. Make Sharia boring again. Now, before you all walk out, what does it mean? Well, the objectives of the project, and it will become a book in a few years' time. First of all, the juridification of the culture wars. And all I mean by that is taking what are very fiercely contested cultural issues, multiculturalism, Sharia councils and the like, and translating them into solvable technical legal problems. And if you want a good example of this in the past, if you look at Islamic finance, about 15 years ago it barely existed in this country. So the government, in genuine wisdom, simply changed the way tax law worked, and 15 years later there's a massive thriving industry in that field. So I'm trying to do that across the board in English civil law. And one of the pillars of that, I've put up there, applied nudge theory. It's basically the Freakonomics approach to law, if you've read that book. Basically behavioral economics, getting people to change their behavior by boring, technical, unobtrusive reforms to the law. And the key part of that is that they're low cost and easy to use, convenient. And my contention is that improving the relationship between British law and Islam, the best way to do that is through seemingly dull technical reforms. So what's the problem? Well, you would think, reading the media, that it's Sharia councils. They are the bodies that get all the attention. There's about 85 potentially that are operating around the country. Everyone knows that there are problems with them, discriminatory, their treatment of women and things like that. But if you look at them more closely, you realize they're actually serving a purpose for Muslim women. So by juridifying that problem, you find that actually 90% of their business is unregistered marriages. So those are Islamic marriages that are conducted informally as far as the law is concerned, which means they have no legal consequence. So women who have no resort to English law go to Sharia councils to get some redress. That's why they're so popular. Unregistered nikah marriages are really what's going on. And it's not them per se that's the problem, it's English law's treatment of them. I put up a case there very recently which has made the law more complicated still, but we'll move on from that. So in terms of how do you juridify this properly? Well, what not to do is to try and ban Sharia councils. It would just force them underground, and it's unlikely to be successful in any event. Secondly, mass recognition, so just accept that they're valid legal marriages without any real legal intervention. Apart from being politically unthinkable, that would also remove the state interest in recording and keeping track of who's married to who. And thirdly, it was put up recently in the Siddiqui review, it was suggested that there should be a Sharia council oversight body. But the issue there is, again, it goes against nudge theory. It just creates another layer of bureaucracy, a whole new set of regulations. And again, it was rejected outright by the Home Office as recognizing the validity of Sharia councils. So how do you actually solve it? The pillar of this really is a celebrant-based marriage system. So at the moment, English law operates a building-based registration system. It's very ponderous. The mosque would need to be registered, the celebrant needs to be registered, and marriage needs to be registered. And the problem with that for Muslims is that that's just inconvenient. It would probably require 2 ceremonies. So how do you cut all that bureaucracy out? And the best way to do it is really to follow Scotland, the Marriage Act 1977, which is really the focus of that is the person conducting the marriage. That's what you focus on, and that's how the law runs, rather than needing buildings to be registered and the like. Secondly, to enforce that, you would need to reform the criminal offences in marriage law. And they're very underused at the moment and ineffectual, but to give the law teeth, if you like, there needs to be very surgical, very specific, problem-based offences. So, for example, de facto polygamy, which, because English law treats Islamic marriages as non-marriages, that's becoming a more widespread problem. So some kind of offence targeting that. And thirdly, reform of the Divorce Religious Marriages Act 2002, which gives protections for Jewish women if they've got a religious marriage and a civil one, making that compulsory, the protections in that apply to Muslims automatically as well. So, summing up, the way to solve a problem like Sharia is a package of technical law reforms. There's no surrender in any of that of liberal principles of English law-based rights. The change of law that would be required would be general, so it would apply to everyone. It would be imperceptible, no one would really notice it. In fact, it may even make getting married cheaper, which would be welcome for all of us. And thirdly, yeah, the fact is it's such a boring set of changes that the cultural shift that would occur would be imperceptible and probably diffuse the usual kinds of hysteria, anger that get aroused whenever Sharia turns up in the news. And yeah, hopefully the result of that is better relations all round. Now, very finally, this is the family law aspect of it. It's the most topical at the moment. I'll eventually get round to dealing with all of those different areas. So civil law, well, non-criminal areas of English law. And if you want more information, as Miriam said, there's a couple of further events. One at the Woolf Institute later in the month, on the 27th, and one next month in London. The Law Commission's going to be at both of them. Rebecca Probert, who's the foremost expert on marriage, will be at both. So you're more than welcome to come along, and do see me afterwards if you want more information on those. Thank you. Any questions?